So here's a funny thing I noticed a long time ago. When liberals want to pass a law, they give it a cute name like the Hugging Puppies Act or Everyone Gets Free Candy Act. Now those aren't real laws that they tried to pass, but the Patriot Act was. The Patriot Act was the most unpatriotic thing that you could ever imagine. It went against several articles in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and it removed many freedoms by government decree. So what about the Affordable Care Act, which raised prices almost immediately and made care harder to get? They just passed the Inflation Reduction Act. You see where this is going? Okay, you get the point. I could name hundreds of laws with absurd names. But there's a new one coming out of Illinois. Before we get started, do you know what the state motto is for Illinois? It's State Sovereignty, National Union. National Union, huh? We'll get back to that one. So the new law from Illinois was passed, and it becomes active on January 1st, 2023. It's called the Safety Law. This law is huge, and it makes many changes to the way police can interact with the public. It goes into detail about the use of body cameras. It prohibits any use of surplus military equipment. It also restricts use of force and requires any other officers to intervene if another officer uses excessive or unauthorized force. So, to be completely fair and honest, there are some arguably good parts to this law. But it doesn't stop there. Safety law is actually an acronym. Each letter stands for a word. The full name of the law is Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act. Yep, it's more woke garbage. Every time someone says fairness and equity, run for your life. It might just depend on it. Now, before you click on another video, because this one is just too hyperbolic, and you can't see any way a law can put your life into danger, give me another 2 minutes. The second part of this law deals with complaints and misconduct for cops. There's good and bad. Fines and penalties for concealing body cams. It makes data on misconduct more accessible. And it bans the destruction of police misconduct reports, which must mean that the destruction of misconduct reports is now legal or something, but it will be illegal soon. So these are some good examples of keeping law enforcement in check and keeping them honest. This, just about any reasonable person would be happy to endorse. But they also allow for the investigation of anonymous complaints, also allows complaint filings against police officers without sworn affidavits or any other legal documentation. This will lead to any community organization group to mass flag any cop without evidence or even giving a name. The left loves to cancel things, and they organize into a mob. I can only imagine this will have bad outcomes. As I stated earlier, this law is long, and when you finally dig into the meat, you find the good stuff. It basically removes all cash bail from the entire state for just about every crime. Yep, every crime. Catch and release on steroids. If you commit any of these crimes, you will be given a ticket and asked to return for your court date. Please. You will not spend any time in jail, and you'll be free to recommit more crimes, or just leave the state, or leave the country for many of our illegal immigrant community. You know, those invaders that come here, take our stuff, commit crimes, then leave. This is perfect for them. Okay, I know I said most crimes, but not the really serious ones, right? Let's take a look. Second-degree murder? Nope, free to go. Aggravated battery? Be on your way, son. No problem. How about drug-induced homicide? No, sir. He's just having a bad day. Sorry to bother you. Kidnapping? Listen, come on. It was just one kid. He's sorry. You can't put anyone in jail for a little kidnapping. Burglary, robbery, intimidation, aggravated DUI, aggravated fleeing and eluding, drug offenses, threatening a public official. All of these are listed as non-detainable offenses. I know this is hard to believe. How about if a city mayor says it?
As of January 1st, 2023, the following things will go into effect, and people need to be aware of this. It abolishes cash bail for almost every offense. This includes but isn't limited to kidnapping, armed robbery, second-degree murder, drug-induced homicide, aggravated DUI, threatening a public official, and aggravated fleeing and eluding. Offenders released on electronic monitoring have to be in violation for 48 hours before law enforcement can act. They could almost drive to Alaska before we can even look for them. It denies victims their constitutional rights. And keep this in mind, businesses and homeowners. Officers will no longer be able to remove trespassers from your residence or your businesses. Someone could decide to live in your shed, and all we can do is give them a ticket. You have to decide what level of force is required to remove them and whether or not it's legal. This is a massive threat to the residents of Orland Park, Cook County, and Illinois.
Do you think crime will go down or crime will go up? We don't even have to guess. We already know the answer because Portland has beta tested this. Portland was infested with Soros-backed district attorneys and prosecutors. They made it very clear they would not be filing charges against low-level criminals and drug users. The cops would arrest them, but they'd be back on the street in just minutes, sometimes before the cops were even done filing the paperwork for that same arrest. Now, predictably, the cops got tired of arresting people who were never charged, so they stopped making arrests. It was a waste of time, and it put them in danger. Then, they legally decriminalized drugs and petty theft. They did this for the same reason, fairness and equity, because it was unfair and mean to prosecute low-level thieves and drug users or drug dealers. These poor victims needed help, not jail time. So now the cops could not even arrest them if they wanted to, for any reason, because now it was harassment, and they, the cops, could be brought in on charges of misconduct. Now you absolutely know that the district attorney would prosecute those charges. So all of the good cops left. The only ones there now are just placeholders waiting for the paycheck every week. Sure, okay. There might be a few good cops in Portland, but come on, it's pointless. So everyone already knows that crime in Chicago is worse than the Wild Wild West. You can count on 25 to 50 gun crimes every weekend. You see the headlines all the time. I love these statistics, like when you hear 34 people shot over the holiday weekend. I always like to remind people that those are just the crimes that were reported. It doesn't count all of the missed shots, the drive-bys with no victims, misfires, or even gang-on-gang shootings that never get reported, no matter the number of casualties at all. So the actual numbers can be much, much higher. We'll never know. So this is the new law. Let's take aggravated battery. An aggravated battery usually implies the use of a deadly weapon or brutal force that causes various degrees of injury to the victim. If you commit this crime in Illinois, you might get arrested, but you'll almost certainly be home in time for dinner. As I understand it, aggravated battery is just one step away from homicide. If you beat someone with a deadly weapon, but they survive, it's assault. If they expire, it's homicide. It's a very thin line. This is serious. Well, it's not very serious for Illinois, because they need to be fair to make sure criminals don't get treated badly. Because he was a good boy. He never did anything wrong. He was just misunderstood. So how does this play out? Well, cops are going to get tired of arresting people that immediately get released. In fact, it will probably be worse. Cops are not putting themselves into a dangerous situation. For what? To write a ticket? They also run the risk of getting anonymous complaints against them for racism or misgendering or hate speech. Any good cop has already started updating their resume. The old cops are waiting until the pension comes and they can retire like royalty. New cops? Would you take that job? Seriously, what are the benefits? Working in a dangerous town that hates you? It loves criminals and it is functionally bankrupt. It will never pay you the pension they promise when you retire in 30 years. What about the criminals? Will they stop doing crime when there's no punishment? Well, take a look at the 949 Club. What's the 949 Club? Well, a few years ago, they decriminalized shoplifting in big California cities for anything that's under $950 in value. You can see videos every day of thugs running into a shop with a garbage bag, filling it up and running out. Sometimes they're organized mobs that run into a store and pick it clean like locusts. The cops barely even show up anymore, and stores barely even call the police. It's just the cost of doing business in liberal cities. That's why dozens of grocery and drugstores have abandoned parts of large cities, where they have just decriminalized minor theft. Now, there's a funny thing about new laws. They can be enforced or not enforced, or even worse, just enforced on a certain type of person. Well, consider what you know about Chicago and Mayor Lori Lightfoot. She's a hateful, evil creature. She has said on many occasions that she considers Trump, Republicans, and conservatives to be bad people. I would think she probably agrees with Führer Biden in saying MAGA Republicans are the #1 threat to his democracy. I would not be surprised if the violent criminals are free from consequences, but thought criminals are arrested for hate speech or domestic terrorism for having the wrong political bumper sticker on your car. That state motto, state sovereignty, national union, sovereignty, supreme power, controlling influence. Yep, you're going to get some of that. National union? I got to tell you, it sounds like they don't even want to be part of this country anymore. I bet you get a little less union. So between the taxes, the crime, increased prices of everything, the brutal winters, political corruption, and new laws, why would anyone but a criminal want to live there? If you live there, you should move. If you own property there, take it from Portland. Sell while you can. As crime increases, property values go down and property taxes will go up. Property values should plummet by this time next year, at least in the big cities. So sometime around January 1st, you might start hearing sirens. The countdown has already started.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours.